He was the guitar man long before he became the sidekick in Smokey and the Bandit. But today, singer-songwriter Jerry Reed received a special honor from American veterans.
Jerry Reed is a living, breathing example of the American dream, having escaped foster care and gone on to win 3 critically lauded Grammys. Reed broke into the country music industry after a long and arduous career in the military and a cotton factory. The master of overcoming insurmountable obstacles, however, was unable to overcome his crippling addiction. In this journey through Jerry Reed's life and death, we invite you to join us. In today's music industry, Jerry Reed's brilliance is all but forgotten. The country music genre may not have achieved its current level of popular success if the Atlanta-born singer and actor hadn't been involved. Back when Reed began composing songs and strumming guitar, country music was severely lacking in that it element. Despite the genre's popularity, it lacked a new attractive face to cement its position as a musical standard. The impact of Reed's career was immense. He had a natural gift for music and could play guitar, sing, and act with ease. As things stand, every new country music musician worth their salt will want to emulate Reed's incredible skill on the guitar. Even though the musician had a very troubled upbringing, those close to him say he always believed he was born to be famous. Little guidance was available to him while he was a young artist. He came from humble beginnings. His parents were cotton mill workers. How, however, did Reed first become known as a musician? The birth of Robert and Cynthia Hubbard's second child in Atlanta, Georgia on March 20, 1937, marks the beginning of Reed's tale. Art and music were constant companions for Reed. However, he had a fixation with relocating to Nashville as a kid so he could jam out with the artists he idolized and play guitar. The young artist's home life was so difficult that he would take periodic trips to see his grandparents in Rockmart, Polk County, Georgia. Reed would be motivated to dream big by Rockmart and its musical connections. Maybe that's why Jerry's visit to his grandparents always ended with him shrieking about how he was going to be a famous musician. However, his training in music was very cyclical. A divorce was finalized by Reed's parents at the tender age of 4 months. The 2 children of Robert and Cynthia ended up carrying the weight of their parents' broken marriage as they were unable to reach a custody agreement. It was also difficult financially. Working 2 shifts at the cotton mill still wouldn't have been enough to sustain 2 families with small children. It was a really sad aftermath. Despite having healthy parents, Jerry Reed and his sister spent a significant portion of their youth bouncing between foster homes and orphanages. Reed had been moved about between many foster homes in Georgia over the first 7 years of his life. He was unaware of the impact his birth had on his parents' already troubled marriage at the time, despite his youth. However, it is just a portion of the narrative. Obviously, in order to express themselves creatively and produce songs that are sensitive emotionally, every artist needs a terrible inspiration. Still, it was hard for a kid of 7 to even begin to understand the truth. If anybody were to work hard to provide a warm and welcoming environment for her children, it would be Reed's mom. She was determined to fulfill her son's idealistic ambition of becoming a musician, since she felt he had a musical bone in him. She put in a lot of time and effort at the mill in order to earn a few more pence. She chose to marry Hubert Howard, a factory worker and a colleague, in 1944 after falling in love again while working. It was finally an opportunity for Jerry Reed and his sister to return home. Still, things looked bleak from a financial perspective. The family found comfort in music during these difficult times, and Jerry would provide entertainment with his typical antics. The lad's true calling was always in the performing arts. Every night when he was 6 years old, Jerry would play with a toy microphone and sing along to the radio. Because he lacked a musical instrument or a luxurious home, he would often use his mother's hairbrush or the woodpile to construct a stage. In 1979, while speaking with Picken, the artist reflected on his difficult upbringing and how he strove to seize each moment. "When I was a little boy, around the age of 6 or 7, I would set up the stove woodpile as a stage and put on the most outrageous performance," he says. While listening to the Grand Ole Opry on the radio, I would use a hairbrush to create rhythm. These events shaped Reed's career in music. Another aspect of the musician's obsession with performing live was discussed in the same interview. He fantasized of taking his music to Nashville and performing for crowds. Not even a less risky job or a different route crossed his mind. Reed had always planned to perform at local watering holes and roadside stages to showcase his music, regardless of whether he succeeded or failed at becoming a country music superstar. Unfortunately, fate had other intentions. Despite the fact that her son's musical dreams may have seemed outlandish or unachievable, Cynthia was the one who realized she had to encourage them. She finally got her hands on $7 after months of saving. Although the amount was insufficient to purchase a new guitar, the fortunate mother-son team was able to score an old instrument from a neighbor who was selling it. The purchase of Cynthia's son's first guitar was finalized with utmost care. Reed was ecstatic. Since his mom could play the guitar, he would nag her non-stop to teach him new chords. Despite the difficulty of her task, Cynthia gave it her all. The renowned guitarist really learned his first chords from her. The artist has said in interviews that his mother taught him the basic chords C, G, and claw hammer G. Jerry Reed, as a child, started to drive his mother crazy with his enthusiasm for learning his first chords. Upon her return from work, her son would be prepared to go on a new musical adventure, guitar in hand. The family couldn't afford a guitar pick, so the budding musician improvised with a cent and followed his mother's strumming instructions. The guy claims that even though the guitar was in fair condition, it was sufficient to secure his destiny. We can't deny that Reed had a remarkable stage presence, and that rusty guitar taught him the skill of entertainment. The Western Kentucky singer-songwriter Merle Travis had an early and profound impact on him. It's a shame that when discussing the decade that defined country music and Travis's guitar skills, his name is hardly brought up. Travis was an unsung hero to Reed. The artist from Kentucky was famous for his fluid fingerstyle guitar playing, which influenced a whole new generation of musicians who came up with the term Travis picking. His songs were raw and unfiltered, and he sang about the economic oppression and hardships faced by coal miners throughout the nation. It goes without saying that Travis was a musical savior to his impoverished factory worker parents. One song in particular had a profound impact on Reed, "I Am a Pilgrim." Reed was astounded by the song's superb guitar performance the first time he heard it. The moment he decided to pursue music as a career, he realized he had to find his inner Merle Travis. "I thought, boy, there it is," he said upon first hearing it. Along comes the guy, accompanied by the large dog. He has information on the burial sites, and I would want to get a piece of it. The would-be artist was still tinkering with his songs and playing guitar when he enrolled at O'Keefe High School in Atlanta. On top of that, he started writing and performing songs that, at first glance, appeared fresh, but whose profound lyrics soon captivated listeners. Reed continued to push the envelope of what it meant to be an entertainer, even while his primary interests remained songwriting and singing. His passion in performing and the theater developed rapidly. During his first 2 years at O'Keefe, he quickly landed assignments because to his charismatic personality. As an actor who was enthralled by his craft, Reed was also enjoying great success in his musical endeavors. However, the trick was unsuccessful. Because school took time away from his music practice, the young musician lost interest in school by his junior year. Since he had his life goals well defined, he saw little need in pursuing a traditional degree. At his junior year, he decided to drop out of school and start working as a day laborer at an Atlanta cotton factory. He would get right into his music engagements as soon as he got off work. To hone his performance abilities, he would perform at as many local honky-tonks as possible. Reed was playing all around Atlanta, from seedy dive clubs to the city's streets, and he was somewhat successful. Ultimately, his voice seemed somewhat familiar. Jerry first modeled his career after those of his favorite musicians, like Hank Williams and Tommy Collins. He would eventually develop his own unique sound, but as a youngster, he was great on guitar. This is why, in Atlanta, especially in the places he played, he gained a small but devoted fan following. In 1954, a local Atlanta policeman was captivated by Reed's incredible guitar talents, which brought true notice to Reed's mastery. He attempted to put the adolescent in touch with Bill Lowry, a famous DJ in the area. Following his peak performance, Lowry entered the music publishing industry and hosted a nationally syndicated country music program on WGST radio every Saturday morning. The radio magnate was, to put it mildly, impressed when the officer, Leroy Sumner, set up an audition for Reed to perform for Lowry. In 1989, when speaking with Jim Schmid, Lowry reminisced about Reed's revolutionary audition. He informed the interviewer that instead of choosing a popular song to demonstrate his singing and guitar playing, Jerry chose a song he had written himself called Aunt Meg's Wooden Leg. The title was strange, and the song certainly lived up to its billing as an unusual piece of music. The fact that it was completely new to Lowry was a major factor in his decision to offer to coach Reed. The youth's music publisher was similarly fast to see that he needed to work hard to become a better songwriter. Spending time with knowledgeable people was the most effective method of learning. The first tour engagement for Reed was secured by Lowry. Opening for Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours for 30 days was a gig that Jerry had gotten himself into. The offer was so profitable that it dispelled any notion of Reed returning to school. Working at the cotton mill all day wasn't going to cut it, so he thought about going back to school to acquire a real career. However, everything shifted after this discovery. School was never the same after that, Reed said later, on his realization that he would devote the rest of his life to music. Jerry Reed's career skyrocketed in an instant. He had gone from playing in local watering holes and the school auditorium to sharing the stage with legendary musicians. After Lowry's performance with Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours went well, he was able to secure more performances for the kids. Although Reed's solo career was far from over, he benefited from Lowry's mentoring by studying the techniques of many renowned artists. It seemed surreal that the radio magnate introduced high school youngster Reed to Capitol Records while he was still a student. Reed had the incredible opportunity to play with legendary artists such as Ernest Tubb, Marty Robbins, Johnny Cash, and the Wilburn Brothers once he finally dropped out of school. Reed said he was astounded by his good fortune. He was able to refine his craft while performing in supporting or opening roles. Maybe it was all the preparation Reed needed to become a revolutionary figure in country music. Reed started working as a part-time disc jockey at WGST radio station in addition to his jobs. It was Lowry who had saved him again. The young musician had the choice of working at a cotton mill, but he preferred to remain involved with music. Furthermore, Reed had personally seen the mill industry's practice of economic exploitation. Reed worked as a tour manager during the day and played with Lowry's band, Kenny Lee, and the Western Playboys, in the evenings when he wasn't on the road. Reed found that performing consistently with a band helped him tremendously. Every day he could try out new guitar skills with the support of a real audience that could tell him what worked and what didn't. Reed landed the dream job as a budding performer with Kenny Lee and the Western Playboys. His friendship with Lowry also blossomed during this period. The radio tycoon's ambition to capitalize on Reed's talent had grown in recent years. Among the many people Jerry had connected with in Atlanta's and beyond's music scenes, his extensive network proved invaluable. Although Jerry was relatively unknown when he released his debut single with Lowry, If the Good Lord's Willing and the Creek Don't Rise, at the tender age of 18, the song went on to achieve respectable success, and it was covered frequently by more seasoned musicians such as Johnny Cash. By recording the song in 1958, Cash was attempting to bring attention to the achievements of a young musician who had been instrumental in Cash's success in a number of his endeavors. Many other artists started covering If the Good Lord's Willing and the Creek Don't Rise after Johnny Cash did so. It should come as no surprise that Reed became a Capitol Records favorite so rapidly. The competition was tough, but Reed still managed to become a teen star. You may be shocked to hear that Reed's first major hit at Capitol wasn't even related to country music. In 1956, the now popular song When I Found You used the teen's original rockabilly composition. The whole crew was astounded. Reed had a certain flair in the way he structured his vocals, and the song's composition was fresh and original. The studio thought it would be best for Jerry to record When I Found You in country music, as he was also attempting to make it big in that genre. Obviously, Reed proved he wasn't just good at one thing. His two versions were well received. Even though the covers never left the studio, Reed's more seasoned and accomplished colleagues couldn't stop gushing over his abilities. Still, the most exciting part remained ahead. Gene Vincent, a fellow artist on Reed's label, covered his 1958 single Crazy Legs, and the version became an instant hit. Although the song was heard by many in Vincent's voice, the label wasted no time attributing the rhythms and content of the song to their young phenomenon. National Recording Corporation was eventually signed by Reed to Lowry. Reed was expected to go out on his own as a solo artist, but he was also employed by the label in a dual capacity as a band member. At the National Recording Corporation, Reed supported several artists with his extraordinary guitar talents, including the likes of Joe South and Ray Stevens. Unusually for a performer of his caliber, the singer avoided controversy for the most part during his career. Contrary to popular belief, Jerry Reed was not a ladies' man like many of his contemporaries. Reed wed country music artist Priscilla Mitchell in 1959. The partnership was ultimately fruitful despite several bumps along the road. Just a few short months after their wedding, Jerry was called to serve in the Army. Priscilla remained at home and advanced her profession. After her husband's release, she was his rock while he resumed his musical career. Charlotte Elaine Zavala was born in 1970, and Sadina Ann Hubbard was born in 1960. The pair was married for 61 years. Thankfully for Jerry and Priscilla, their daughters also chose to pursue careers in country music, which has allowed them to continue their musical heritage. As if that weren't enough, Jerry was there for his two daughters every step of the way as they conquered the difficult music industry. Unfortunately, not one, but two misfortunes put an end to the family's musical voyage. Jerry Reed passed away in Nashville on September 1, 2008, due to emphysema-related complications. A 71-year-old man he was. Everyone felt terrible when the legendary musician passed away. Listen, Jerry wasn't someone who was addicted to drugs or excessive drinking. Instead, he developed lung illness as a result of his irreversible addiction to smoking cigarettes. Although Reed's habitual smoking was well known, his admirers were mostly in the dark about the chronic addiction he had acquired in the late 90s. Despite the musician's best efforts, he was unable to kick the habit for good. As a close friend of Reed's, Tom Bresch was the son of Merle Travis. Bresch was the one who brought attention to Reed's murderous habit. Bresch documented Reed's efforts to kick the habit in the 90s. With the publication of his 1972 hit Another Puff, Reed chronicled the struggles of a guy attempting to kick the habit. Although Reed created Another Puff to bring attention to the risks of smoking, he was never really able to absorb the message. A profound feeling of melancholy and despair settled over Priscilla upon the passing of her husband. In 2014, she died. The daughters of Reed are carrying on their father's work even now. Please return another time. We appreciate you taking the time to watch.